Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bedrock Guide, where we talk about everything Minecraft. And sometimes we build farms that we've already built in this series to make them even better. Take this one, for example, the AFK Fishing Farm. It works great, but there's a lot of stuff that I don't need. But before I get into the build for today, I do want to catch you up on some things that I've done off camera. Not too long ago, I befriended a mending villager named Felix, and this was his home for a short time. But I thought it would be a good idea to give him something much more not a hole in the ground. So I owe a huge thank you to everybody that attended my most recent live stream who chipped in some pretty great ideas for detailing this brand new villager library where Felix now lives and works. If we jump into the inside of the library, you can see that it is complete with a bookshelf that has a rolling ladder. It doesn't actually roll, but let's just use our imagination, okay? Wouldn't that be cool if we had rolling ladders though? That'd be awesome. And not only this bookshelf, I've got bookshelves all the way around the room with a couple of seats here and tables to sit and read and talk. Some nice decorations like trees and potted plants and flowers and a nice view of the ocean. And this might actually be my favorite section in the entire build, and I can't take credit for any of it. So once again, huge thank you. I love how the villager's bed is actually hidden in a U-shaped couch tucked away in the reading corner, and Felix is just loving it. He takes a nap on the couch every night. I was even able to work in my famous BluJay carpet into the library, and I just absolutely love the open concept style of this build because it allows the villager to roam free, access his workstation when needed, the bed when needed, and because of this trap door right here in the doorway, he actually can't even get out, and no zombies can get in because they're too tall. So he's got a cozy living space with complete safety from anything except for maybe baby zombies, but the chances of them getting in here are pretty low because he's not going to be standing here at night. He'll be over there napping on his couch. And not only have I completed the build for Felix the Librarian, I've got some basic pathways in place. And when I say basic, these are nowhere near complete. This is just to give us a general idea of where things are going to connect throughout the village, because from the time I started building here, I've just kind of plopped things on the ground, and at some point we're going to need to get some organization in this place. Earlier in the season, I built this AFK Fishing Farm, and it has worked really well so far and still works to this day, but it is reliant upon me standing here with a fishing rod in order to get a ton of fish, but it also comes with some things that I don't necessarily need. I don't think I'm ever gonna have to craft a fishing pole ever again, and while this fishing farm has served its purpose for now, I think it's time to build an upgrade. To kick off this build, I want to talk briefly about a texture pack that I'm using, and it is called the Markers Pack by Foxy No Tail. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description so you can download it for yourself. This is actually a really useful pack for multiple scenarios. I used it for the Blaze farm when I was designing that, but all you gotta do is give an armor stand a white banner to hold and change its position, and you're gonna start to see some crazy stuff. I haven't gone through all of the features, so I'll leave that up to you to explore. I'm pretty sure this is like the mob spawn despawn area, but yeah, just check it out. You can do some pretty cool stuff like this. Chunk borders. This will show you the exact 16 by 16 area from bedrock to build height, so you never have to wonder where a chunk border is. Chunk borders are not necessarily important for everything, but for something like we're building today, we're definitely gonna want it. I can expand this from 1 chunk to 4 chunks, and I'm pretty sure the next setting is 9 chunks. That's kind of crazy. We're not gonna need all of that. I just need to go locate 1 chunk where we're gonna start the build, and honestly, I think this seems like a good spot right here. I'm gonna take my blocks and I'm gonna go right into the corner of the chunk and go all the way down to the floor, and then I'm gonna build up. And then I'm gonna mark the 4 corners just so that we know each of these corners represents 1 chunk of the farm. And then from here, I can go all the way out to the border, and you gotta be careful because if you get out of range of the armor stand, the lines are gonna start disappearing on you. But what I'm gonna do now is take some glass and outline the entire 4 chunk area where this farm is going to be, making sure that I'm on the outside of the chunk and not on the inside, because that's where the actual farm is. This is just going to be the retaining wall. And once I've got the 4 interior corners of the farm and the outside perimeter done, I'm gonna go ahead and break the armor stand. I don't need it anymore. This is going to be the entirety of the farm, and so now I know where everything is gonna go. I should also mention before we move forward, if you're on a lower end device, you may not want to build the farm this big. The same principles apply if you do this with 1 chunk, which is what I would recommend for most lower end devices. but I even have a newer iPhone, and it was starting to drop a few frames. So this size of the farm might be a little bit more for the PC users, but the principles still apply for everybody. So if you're unsure, maybe start with one chunk and expand from there. To avoid the hassle of having to come up for air every 5 seconds, I'm gonna go ahead and drink a water breathing potion. And starting in the corner of the farm, I'm gonna count from the surface 1 block all the way down to 5 blocks. And from there, I'm gonna start building out a platform inside of this 4-chunk area. It's important to build this platform first because this is going to be the space where all of our items are collected. And there's only gonna be a 1-block gap in between. And now that I say this, actually, this doesn't matter as much anymore. We can crouch in a 1-block space now. Anyway, it's easier if you get this done first before building the platform on top of it, but I think either way would work now. The first platform is complete, and this is where all of our rails are gonna sit, and I've laid out the basic track pattern. But before I cover up this entire platform with rails, I need to consider how I'm going to power the powered rails. I've got these laid out in groupings of 3, except for the middle is a group of 4, but I only need 1 redstone source for each section. So I'm gonna take the groupings of 3 and bust out the middle rail, and then replace the block underneath it with a redstone block. Now that I know that this is going to be the track pattern going all the way down, I can actually convert this entire row into redstone blocks. If you know what your pattern's gonna be ahead of time, don't be like me. Don't do it the hard way. Just build the platform with the redstone blocks built into it ahead of time. Man, someday I'm gonna learn. All of the power sources are in place, and now I can start filling in this entire platform. And you might notice at the end of the line here, this rail is curved. Powered rails cannot curve, only regular rails. But when you first place it, it's going to be straight. If you place another regular rail right next to it, it should curve and connect together. And then I can take another powered rail and just go straight down the line and alternate with the same exact track pattern. The one thing to be careful of though is now that I'm at the end of the line here, if I just place another rail right here, it's gonna connect up with this and then just loop around. And that's not gonna take us very far. The way around that issue is to extend the rail here 1 block farther so that when I connect up a rail here, it doesn't join with that one. Then I can go about my business curving this one around and then matching up the track pattern again and repeat until the whole platform is done. After putting the whole thing together and reconsidering, I've decided to split the rail into 2 different tracks. And the reason why I decided to do this is because the rail, if it went from here to there, takes a full 2 minutes to go from one side to the other. So from start to finish, it's 4 minutes, and the despawn time for items is 5 minutes, so that's cutting it a little bit too close for my comfort. This should make it so we get maximum efficiency, and nothing will despawn in this farm. Oh, and one quick note as well, these bumpers right here where the rails meet in the middle have to be solid blocks, and these have to be powered rails in order for it to bounce off. If I were to put something like a transparent block here, the minecart's just gonna stop. And I definitely don't want that to happen, as this farm needs to be continuously flowing in order to pick up the maximum rates. So now, before we actually start spawning in fish, I want to put together the collection system where these minecarts are going to drop off the items. I've run the rails up to a spot in the middle on each side where they're going to meet to drop off the items and then bump back out in order to pick up more. However, this is not enough time or space for them to just drop items while rolling, so I am going to need to stop the minecart, and I've got just the perfect system for that. I'm gonna break this block right here, and in its place, I'm gonna put a downward facing hopper, and directly on top of that hopper, I'm gonna place a detector rail. And then I'm gonna place a temporary rail right here, which will elevate this detector rail, and then I can break this one right here, and place another block for the bumper. Out of the side of this hopper, I'm gonna place another piece of glass, followed by a comparator that's going to read this detector rail. Then I'm gonna place 1 solid block right here, 1 piece of redstone dust on top of that, and then out of the side of this block, a redstone torch, and then another glass block right here with a redstone repeater right there. And that's pretty much it. What this is going to do is allow the minecart with hopper to roll up to this detector rail right here. And if there are any items at all inside of the hopper minecart, the detector rail will send out a signal and the comparator will say, hey, there's items in that minecart, which will power this redstone dust, depowering this redstone torch, and repeater, which will turn off the powered rails. If you didn't know, minecarts actually do not roll on powered rails, but they stay completely completely stationary, even on an incline like this. So when this detector rail says, hey, there's items inside of this hopper minecart, it's going to stop the minecart to allow it to unload the items into that hopper and down into our storage. And then once there are no items left, the comparator will turn off, which will repower the rails, allowing the minecart to go back out and collect more items. So for example, if I put all 64 of these rails in here, you can see that it's not working. Why isn't it working? Hold on. It might not be positioned in the right spot. There we go. Okay, so 64 items. I'm gonna push it up. I'm telling you, this just worked in my testing world. Why is this not working? Allow me a minute to troubleshoot, and I'll be right back. I'm telling you, Minecraft is such a weird game. It makes no sense why this works. I figured out the problem though. This right here does not need to be a hopper, and I had no idea until just now. I've been using this design for so long. The hopper actually needs to be down here, because technically, when the minecart rolls down the detector rail, it sits on top of this rail, but it's halfway between this space and this space. And for some reason, Minecraft thinks that it's sitting halfway on top of this hopper because it's sitting on top of this powered rail. I have no idea. This is so weird, but it works. Let me show you. When we place items in the minecart, we push it forward, the comparator will detect the items and it will drop the items into the hopper way below. And there you go. You can see it's working. Once the minecart is completely empty of items, the system will let it loose and it'll roll on back down into the farm. Perfect. Again, I am just baffled as to why this works, but I'm not gonna question it. We're just gonna go with it and build another one on this side. And there we go. I've got 12 double chests ready to go to receive all of the fish bones and squid ink we can get. So I'll explain one more time in an overview at the end of this video after we finish the farm how all of this works together. But first, time to actually get this farm up and running. And there's only one thing we need left to make that happen, and that is magma blocks. I'm going to place one magma block over the top of every rail, and you can see it's already doing its job. Basically what happens is anytime anything spawns on top of one of these magma blocks, it's going to pull it down, and you can see what's going to happen from here. But I need one magma block in every space where there is a rail, and that will give us a full 4-chunk fish farm. Again, if your device is not equipped to handle this, you might only want to build 1/4 of this size, which is 1 chunk, which is 16 blocks by 16 blocks. And as you can see too, this thing is already working. We got a fish just sitting there waiting to be picked up. Oh man, it happens quick too. Oh, what did I tell you? All the fish and bones we could possibly want. All right, the entire magma block floor is in place. You can see the bubbles going crazy, and if you look closely, there's plenty of fish already on the platform. And so I think I'm gonna go ahead and put my minecarts in motion and see what we end up with here in a few minutes. Now, this isn't gonna be running at maximum efficiency just yet because you can see there's still some things spawned outside of the farm. We want this to be where it is only spawning things inside the farm and nowhere else. In order to do that, we need to put an AFK platform up high, which is why I still have these markers in the middle of the farm. Eventually, I'll get rid of those. In order to get maximum efficiency for this farm, I'm going to pillar up to level 87, and I'm going to pillar out over to that center point where those 4 original blocks are that I placed at the very beginning of this build. In fact, it may be a good idea to turn the chunk borders back on just so I can see exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I want to make sure that I build this up so that I cannot fall in, and I want a roof over my head so no phantoms can spawn in and take me out. Kind of hard to see, but I'll show you as soon as I turn off the pack. Now, one thing to note, at this height, for my simulation distance of 12 chunks, I am only going to get fish and bones. At least that's what I have found from my testing. And the main reason for that is because fish despawn at a much lower distance than squid do. And so if I want to get any squid for black ink, I'm gonna have to pillar up a little bit higher. And when I say a little bit higher, I mean a lot a bit higher. here. I'm completely out of range of the armor stand, so I can't see my chunk pack anymore. But right here at OI level 171 is exactly where we need to be. I have tested this out in my testing world. This will ensure that no squid can spawn outside of this farm. If I'm only looking for ink sacs, then I can come all the way up here. If I'm looking for everything else, I can go down to the platform below. Keep in mind as well that if you're on a simulation distance of 4, you're not going to need to do this. Sim distance of 6 or higher, you need 2 separate platforms. Now, because I don't want to be climbing a ladder or pillaring up every time I want to get to one of these 2 platforms, I am going to go ahead and build a bubble column using soul sand and water, and that's going to shoot me all the way up to the top of whichever platform I want to go to. And after we do that, the farm's basically done. All right, I've got an AFK platform up to the fish level and an AFK platform up to the squid level, both of which are accessible by a water elevator. And the most fun part about it is I get to jump out every single time I want to leave the farm. Also, this is the first time I've gotten to have any kind of bird's eye view in this world of my village. That's not too bad so far. And the last thing I want to do before I test this farm out is make sure that this does have maximum efficiency, which means closing this in entirely, because I don't want any fish trying to escape or any of the drops getting glitched out of the sides of the farm. So I'm just going to surround the entire farm in a glass wall, and we should be good to test. Well, I've actually already completed 2 successful tests and was waiting on another one just to kill some time when this guy struck. I don't know how he got up here. He must have spawned inside of one of the bubble vaders. Come on, dude, give me my armor back. Does he have my helmet? Oh, yeah. Oh, well, he doesn't have my helmet anymore, but neither do I. Let's go get it. Well, that was a scare. Okay, before we show the results of the 2 tests, I do want to explain in a broad overview how all of this works together to give us all of the drops that I just got over 2 hours of testing. Fish, squid, dolphins, any aquatic mob that can spawn in this area will be able to spawn inside of these bubble columns. And when the game decides where aquatic mobs are going to spawn, it looks for the highest block that has water above it. And so nothing should ever spawn underneath these blocks because there's water up here. Mobs could spawn down here outside of the farm, which is why we are going to take ourselves up to the first AFK spot. And that should ensure that no fish are able to spawn anywhere outside of the farm, but squid, dolphins, drowned, all of those things can still spawn even when we're standing there. So to ensure that they can't, that's why we built the higher platform to get all the squid ink. And subsequently, we're gonna get a little fish as well because dolphins can still spawn in here. This really shouldn't be a dolphin farm. I'm so sorry, dolphins. But hey, don't say I didn't warn you. At any rate, once the mobs decide to spawn in this area, the bubble columns will push them down toward the magma blocks, and the magma blocks will quickly take care of anything on this platform, and they will drop fish, bones, or ink sacs. Because minecarts with hoppers can pull items through a solid block, anything that's on top of this surface will get pulled through once a minecart passes by, and it will collect everything to bring it up to this collection spot, where once again the detector rail will say, hey, there's items, depowering this rail, making the minecart stop here to deposit all of the items into this hopper, which flows around into this system, eventually landing in the chests. So after an hour of standing at our lower AFK spot, these 2 double chests right here are full of items. You're also gonna notice a couple of ink sacs. There's not many, but in the random chance that there are no squid in the ocean part of this area, and they just happen to spawn in here, you might get a few, but it's not gonna be many. It's mainly going to be bones, raw salmon, and raw cod, and all of these items together equate to over 6,000 items in 1 hour. That's absolutely nuts. The second platform is way less impressive. It's just this little chest over here. We got under 3 stacks of ink sacs. There were some other items along with it, but I'm not going to count those because I'm not sure if they were from when I was standing down here before we went up, or if they happened to drop in when we came down. There was just a few random items like fish and bones in there as well, but I didn't count them toward either one. Keep in mind as well, if you do build a smaller farm, you're going to have to take your platforms and adjust the height of them based on the spawn areas around where your ocean is. You just want to make sure that nothing is spawning spawning outside of the farm when you're on your AFK platform. But hey, I think that's gonna do it for today. I hope you learned a little something about AFK fish farms, and I'm just gonna get a camera account in here and start AFKing at this spot and building up a huge stockpile of bones, because we're gonna need them here in the not so distant future. And if you did enjoy this video today, make sure that you leave me a comment to tell me what you enjoyed or what you learned. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you're new, and hey, don't go anywhere. There's more Bedrock Guide content on the way.